I like to say that tigers can change stripes, but it's very rare. So 95% of the time, how somebody approached jobs in the past is going to be a pattern for how they'll approach working with you. I can't double down on that enough, is to spend the time to really validate the person and to de-risk it as much as possible on the front end.
Welcome back to the Retirement Fiduciary Podcast, a place where we have authentic, no BS discussions about retirement planning, investment strategies, and wealth management. Whether you're approaching retirement or if you've already made work optional, this show is for you. Now, here's your host, Adam Koós, President, Portfolio Manager, and Senior Financial Advisor at Libertas Wealth Management Group at libertaswealth.com.
All right, everybody, we've got a really good one lined up today. I'm joined here by William Spengler, the founder of Frederick Fox, one of the fastest growing recruiting firms in the country for finance and accounting talent. Will launched the company back in 2019 after seeing firsthand how slow, bloated, and outdated the traditional recruiting model had become. So instead of building another agency stacked with layers of management and overhead, he went the opposite direction. So lean, virtual first, and it should go without saying that he's a little bit obsessed with results, which doesn't suck, obviously. But since then, Frederick Fox has grown to serve more than 700 clients nationwide with a team of more than 55 veteran recruiters, all without taking a dime of outside funding, which I find it extremely interesting. So the firm runs on cutting-edge technology, real accountability, and a performance-driven culture that gets hiring done quickly and done well. So their clients span mid-market to enterprise companies across the U.S., and what they consistently come back for is clarity, precision, and that whole human-first approach to making critical hires. And behind all that, by the way, is Will, obviously, a math nerd turned entrepreneur, guitar-playing father of three, and this is my favorite part. He's a spicy food-loving early riser, and I am too. I was just sending a video to one of my good friends the other day of my spice cabinet, and I've got all these hot sauces, and I'm a connoisseur of chicken wings.
Oh, yeah.
My favorite food in the world is chicken wings. I could eat them for breakfast, but I can't get around hot yoga. I can't get around hot yoga making you a better entrepreneur. You will not catch. Well, no.
Yeah.
If you caught me in a hot yoga room, it's because I'm dead. That's where you would catch me. Will, thank you for joining me, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that intro. And I was a early riser until I had my third, who's now 2 years old. I have a 2-year-old girl, so I have two boys and a girl. I was always a 5:30 a.m. riser, especially when I first started my business. It was 6-7 days a week. It was tough on the marriage. I think you and I have similar stories there. Once I got 5 years into starting the business, work-life balance came back. So the early morning it's still 6 a.m., but it used to be like 4:35 a.m. when I first started. I love spicy food, chicken wings. That's my favorite meal. If I were on death row, that would be my last meal, is hot buffalo wings.
If I were on death row, it would be in a hot yoga room. And I would be...
I love hot yoga. I used to do it like 5 days a week until I had kids as well. I don't know if you know this, but I also went to Ohio State.
I didn't know that.
I see you got the Buckeye lamp in the background. So
yeah,
big Buckeyes fan, and happy to talk more about our firm and any questions you have about our business model.
Yeah, why don't we start just by hearing your story? Where'd you start your career? How'd you end up where you are?
I was actually in space math at Ohio State, and then I moved over to finance. I came out of school like tail end of the recession period of 2007, 2008. Couldn't find a corporate accounting and finance job. I did actually end up getting a cost accounting role, spent time as an accountant, and I was recruited by a staffing company in around 2012. And I thought staffing was a scam at the time. I didn't understand why a recruiter was essentially like a broker to other companies. And this recruiter told me, hey, I can get you like a senior cost accountant job in the interview. And he said to me, you're an accountant that can actually communicate. I think you could be a good recruiter. We do accounting and finance recruiting. Long story short, I got it. That's how I got into staffing. I've been in staffing now 14 years. I worked for a publicly traded staffing company the first 6. Then for 3 years after that, I became a partner in a small to mid-size, you call it mid-size, they're about 100 to 120 million annual revenue company. After 3 years with that second firm, I decided to start this company, Frederick Fox, in 2019. Been at it now 6.5 years. It's been a journey.
Ownership's always a journey. Let's jump into recruiting talk. You said that traditional recruiting, the whole traditional recruiting model, it's outdated and overbuilt. So from your vantage point, what would you say slows down the hiring today?
Yeah, I think what that's referring to in the bio is that a lot of staffing agencies are set up with a lot of mid-tier management and they have a lot of local in-office overhead. So that a lot of traditional staffing would be you meet your recruiter in person first and then you go out to the end client. A lot of our competitors pay recruiters a pretty low base or draw and a pretty low commission percentage. We've taken an approach of almost like a real estate brokerage model. You'll see it in financial advisories. I think RIAs do it too. We basically took the real estate brokerage model and applied it to staffing, where we only onboard senior level recruiters, veteran recruiters that want to be independent, but will see the value of a shared service back office center. So, a lot of our competitors are a pure W-2 model. We're a hybrid model where we have some recruiters W-2, we have some recruiters 1099. And I think that's what differentiates us is that we pay out 80% commissions when somebody starts. And then we have a real partnership opportunity for people to actually be protected and on an equity basis in the event of a change of ownership. So I think our core differentiator and what we're doing differently has to do with our internal offer to the folks that work for Frederick Fox. As far as within financial advisory, we do a lot of corporate finance. We just landed a big blue chip customer that I can't name to staff nationally. I think people want to have a more authentic relationship with a recruiter. And I think that the slow in office, unnecessary interview processes, I think people are burnt out on that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I know you can't name the blue chip firm, but a lot of these high performing firms, they define roles differently than those who just reuse old job descriptions over and over again. How would you say the most successful firms, the firms that hire the best, what are they doing better?
I think it comes down to having a clear value proposition as an employer. I think that companies that are confident with this is who we are, this is where we're going, and this is how we're going to get there, and this is why you would want to work for us. I always say, even if you're a smaller company, if you've got clear, confident vision and you're able to display that value proposition, that A players pick up on confidence. As a smaller company, the more confident you can be in your vision and the upside, that's how you win the talent game. I'd say it's like hitting on a 10 at the bar, right? You will have to display confidence in who you are, where you're going, and why you're doing it. And I think a lot of people struggle with hiring because they don't have a clear employer value proposition and they don't have a clear interview process in place, which is just transparent, a normal process, and timely. And so I think people overcomplicate and undersell themselves as companies sometimes with hiring process.
And oftentimes, whether it be looking for a new home or hiring staff to work at their firm, they often get burned by bad hires. I mean, that obviously, I feel like the people think the toughest part of this business is starting a business, lead generation, getting those first clients and getting the snowball rolling down the hill and growing bigger. And they're right. That's the hardest part. But I think the second hardest part is hiring. What would you say are some of the biggest interviewing or selection mistakes that lead to mishires?
Yeah, I think it's just not checking references. And so I think what's really painful is you make a hire, it's the time. 6 months in, you realize they sold you a bag of goods or they told you they could sell. And I think oftentimes, if you spend more time doing references or backdoor references before you hire someone, you can save yourself a lot of pain 6 months, 1 year down the road. I like to say that tigers can change stripes, but it's very rare. So 95% of the time, how somebody approached jobs in the past is going to be a pattern for how they'll approach working with you. I can't double down on that enough, is to spend the time to really validate the person and to de-risk it as much as possible on the front end.
All right. So, Will, what early warning signs would you say tell a company or a firm that their current hiring process, whether it's internal or via an agency is actually costing them money or momentum as opposed to helping them?
I think it's when you have stakeholders internally that aren't aligned, which then causes interview processes to go 4, 5, 6 weeks. It confuses the candidates interviewing. And I think you end up losing really good people because companies didn't spend the time to interview all stakeholders and come to an agreement first on the profile and come to an agreement on the process. So many companies, I think, fail with misalignment internally, which just causes confusion for an A player looking for the job.
What about when they're going through this process? I know that one of the hardest things to do is to build an onboarding call. Not, I shouldn't say onboarding, but a hiring process before you even get to onboarding. When we talk about compensation, expectations, the reality of the market as it is today, what should companies be thinking about when it comes to compensation expectations so they stay competitive without blowing up their margins or creating resentment on their team? Because that can happen too. So talk a little bit about compensation in today's market.
Sure. On the first part of the interview, I'll answer quickly. I'm a big believer in the technical interview first, and whoever your technical expert is, to do that right on the front end, then have them meet with the hiring manager. And then I'm a big fan of one last third round interview of meet the team and all parties involved in the decision-making process. It's a 3-step process. You can weed out the technical on the first round and save everybody time. As far as compensation, there are a lot of case studies. There are a lot of salary guides online that you can get, salary.com, Glassdoor. Compensation is always if you go back to economics 200, it's supply and demand of labor. So if you're looking to add a very niche person that you don't have internally, if the market conditions are there's just not a lot of people in this market, then I think that you have to accept that we're going to pay more to get this talent in the firm. I understand the internal inequities that could cause if there's transparency on compensation. However, it comes down to a company's got to hit its objectives and it's got to get talent in the door to get that done. If you can't pay top dollar to get an external resource that you don't have internally, then I'm a big believer giving them some kind of clear roadmap of hitting objectives and how they could earn either additional bonus or maybe they could earn stock options or some kind of carrot they can chase through performance so that you can overcome that salary gap. It depends on the state, like California and New York. You can't really talk what's your current comp and what are you looking to make a move on, but most states you can be very transparent. And I think that the more transparent, the better, and that deals get done faster when both sides are just operating in good faith and saying, yes, I'm looking for a $20,000 raise, but here's why. And I like negotiating through transparency versus this New York, California thing. What's the target? And I have no idea where you're at. I think it just makes for a poor experience for all parties.
Okay. And what about firms and readiness when it comes to readiness? You've built a 55 recruiter firm by scaling lean, getting systems right early. What would you say are maybe some of the non-negotiable systems a growing company or firm needs before they go ramping up their hiring and reaching out to you?
I think this is a part of entrepreneurship that I drastically underestimated, was having a clear 90-day onboarding program. I always assumed if you hired senior level people that have sales experience, they'd come in, figure out your tools, figure out your system, and hit the ground running by week 3 or 4. Yes, there's some configuration, but that I quickly learned growing a business, like you can't invest enough into onboarding and learning and development. And that became like a huge blocking function for me. As soon as my firm got to about 12 people, that's when I started to really feel it. And so I think that you have to have clear expectations of what you want out of the hire in the first 90 days and a clear roadmap of that first 90 days, and then have a clear objectives to measure their success within a year. I'm still a young entrepreneur. I'm 37, but I didn't realize how big of scaling a firm, how important that is, like one of the major blocking functions from growing, just having alignment and orientation of people as they come through your system.
No. Yeah, I think we've actually experienced that at our firm. Come to think of it. Let's talk about just, I don't know, I guess I'm curious your opinion here. What would you say are maybe one or two habits that separate companies that are really good at retention, so retaining great talent, from those who are constantly churning and burning through people?
Great question. I think it's acknowledgement of and being grateful for the people that work for you. I think that it sounds maybe cheesy, but I think people are a company's greatest asset. And I
Totally.
don't just use that as a plug because I'm in the staffing business. I genuinely think that people run companies. And so as the owner, the people are, in my opinion, your customer that work for you. And so I'm a big believer in servant leadership. I think if you can, as a leader, view it not as these people work for me, but I serve them and I want to make sure that they have the best experience and I want to acknowledge them and I want to allow them to be creative and grow this company and I'll actually accept their input. I think companies that have that type of self-awareness and that type of leadership style retain people, even if they're underpaying them. They'll retain people through people aren't all about the money at the end of the day. They want culture, they want their opinions to be heard, and they want to feel like they're making a difference and adding value and get to explore their creative passion. A fluffy answer to your question, but that would be my advice for anybody looking to uptick retention.
I'm glad you mentioned leadership because that's where I was going next. How can owners, leaders, we all want to grow, right? We wouldn't be hiring if we didn't want to grow, I wouldn't think. But how do you balance the fact that most owners are going to want high performance? So how do you balance high performance expectations with also genuinely caring for your team, especially when you're smaller?
I think you've got to align incentives to grow. So I think as a leader, you want to create other leaders. And if you want that leader that you created to grow your business, why would they care about it? There has to be some incentive of why they would do that. And so I think that you have to align incentives in order to grow. If you're coming from a place of ivory tower and you're just constantly pushing, you're going to push people right out the door. Whereas I think if you align incentives and you motivate and you inspire, you're going to be pulling people towards the direction and vision that they want to go. So I think it's about explaining why you want to grow, what's in it for them when you get there. And I think that's, you know, what a leader does well. They craft vision, they explain how it will benefit everybody once they get there, and they're hold people accountable to milestones on that path towards that vision.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. I want
Thank
to
you.
go through a rapid fire with you.
Go ahead.
And you don't have to, you can feel free to elaborate. It's not like we need to go so fast that you can give one word answers, but I want to go through a couple questions and just get your quick, whatever that comes to your head first. The first question is, you're hiring, you've got a candidate, you like them. This happens, right? You find a great candidate, you like them, you think, okay, this is going to be a kind of a golden nugget here, unicorn, if you will. And then they ghost you. What's your go-to follow-up move? Or if you have more than one?
Move on. Yeah.
The opposite of
Um,
what I thought you were going to say.
yeah. I don't have time for the ghosting anymore. If they ghost me, I'm done. I, it's just, there's some misalignment. I don't know what the reasons are. I don't care. If you're ghosting me, I'm gone.
Okay. That's honesty. I love it. What's one belief about hiring that you wish companies would just finally let go of?
Communication skills. I think it's very important. Don't get me wrong, but I think some people just interview really well. I wish people would look for more substance. So one of the best employees I have is not a great communicator, but she is the real deal. And so I think oftentimes companies value this person that can talk the talk, but just can't walk the walk. And so be careful that there are people that aren't great salespeople, but really good at what they do.
Okay. And what would you say is one small hiring decision? It doesn't have to be a hiring decision, but one small piece of the process that you feel can make an outsized payoff on the back end, say over the next 3 to 5 years?
The references, I think, are the biggest game changer to just know what you're really getting at the end of the day. I think a take-home case study could be good too, where
Sure.
somebody actually demonstrates their work product or how they would tackle a problem. You have to be careful with those that you're not having them give you free consulting advice. Some companies do that. They overplay that case study for free consulting advice. But those are two things outside that, like a take-home case study to demonstrate the skills. And then I can't triple down enough on references. I think that's just something that you have to do.
Yeah, I think a lot of companies don't do that. It's like, all right, we found somebody great. It's fine. Let's move along here.
I think with salespeople, you have to. Every salesperson is the best salesperson on the planet. You have to really do references when it comes to salespeople, in my opinion.
It's a good point. You can find something completely different. And my most important question of the day, does hot yoga really make you a better entrepreneur or just more tolerant of discomfort?
I think it makes you a better entrepreneur because it's mindset. And I think it's the mental health that comes from hot yoga. So it is extremely uncomfortable, but there's something about hot yoga and exercise in general that I think just you sleep better, you feel better, and you're more at peace with yourself. I'd say give it a shot.
Yeah. All right. Maybe I might take you up on that and give it one shot and hope that I survive to live another day and go to a nice air-conditioned gym maybe, which is where I prefer to spend my time. But one last question for you. What do you think sets Frederick Fox apart from all the other search firms that are out there doing what you do?
We only hire agency recruiters with at least 5 years of experience at reputable firms. So it's a very talented group of people. We're not home-growing junior talent internally. And we're also a boutique. We're now 63 recruiters. We now have about 950 clients that we serve, but we're small enough to really give personalized service, and we have the scope to go nationally. So we're not confined to one state or one location. I think a lot of staffing agencies I call them your local boutique squeeze. They only do Columbus, Ohio. They meet everybody in person in Columbus, Ohio over 25 years. Their database is great. But now all of a sudden the customer needs a hire in California or Connecticut or Florida. These local boutiques don't have that reach or scope. I think that makes us unique. And I think on the senior level part, it's just the ability to save hiring managers time. Senior recruiters are more accurate. They're faster. They've been in the game a while. So we do a lot of 100 to 300K jobs. And our team understands a lot of the nuances within a corporate accounting and finance and financial services. So understanding what you're doing and what you're recruiting makes you save hiring managers time because you're presenting accurate candidates.
Got to get the right people.
Yep.
But Will, thank you so much for taking us behind the scenes of how modern recruiting really works, what companies need to know if they want to build stronger, more scalable teams. So thanks again for hanging out. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Adam. Appreciate you having me on.
For sure. And to those watching or listening, we're going to have all your links in the show notes. If you want to get a hold of Will, you can find it on his website at frederickfox.com. You can also find him on LinkedIn. He's got a company page, a personal page, as well as Facebook. Again, all the links will be in the show notes, so you can come back and check that out. As I always say, there's thousands and thousands of podcasts out there, and you chose to spend your time with us today. So thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you like a second opinion on your retirement plan or investment strategy, please head over to libertaswealth.com. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered as legal, financial, tax, or as a basis for investment decisions. Always consult a certified financial planner or a fee-only fiduciary advisor before acting on any ideas discussed.